Well, hey there and welcome. Gosh, we have a really good one here for you today. Let me just share my screen. There we go. Welcome, welcome. Well, this is the Ask SelfRecruiter video advice blog. By the way, if any of these sessions aren't quite answering your question, just send your question in to ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com. Get your questions answered. In case you haven't seen me before, John Krant, author, career coach, and speaker. Resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if your career story is not getting really the attention it needs, if it's not, doesn't have the right staging, lighting, perception of your brand isn't where it needs to be, I know exactly who you should work with. So you can check out all my services over on my SelfRecruiter website under the services tab, and I'd be happy to speak with you in case you don't know which package may be right for you. So let's get into today. Today's questions are all going to be about how you have control when you're going after a job. So it's 8 questions on how you can manage your own interview process. Let's start here and just dissect this a little bit here. Manage my own interview process. I feel like I'm just the sheep being put through the pen on the way to, hopefully not the slaughterhouse. Maybe they're just going for a trim. I don't really know. But my gosh, there's a lot that we can do in the hiring process to actually manage our own hiring process. So let's jump into each question. What's involved in managing the hiring process for a new job? In my view, managing your hiring process requires several things. First off, an ability and almost a freedom you will grant yourself in outreach and communications to speak to whomever might be the one that can move your candidacy forward. That's part of it. The other part of it is being an active individual in your job search interview process to discover their steps. Each company that you interview with, let's imagine you may be interviewing with 3 different companies. Well, each company you interview with is going to have a different timeline, a different process, maybe a different set of influencers involved in that. Part of what we have to do in conversation is to uncover and discover each of these steps so that you can better manage them and figure out, do you have to participate in each and every step, or maybe you're good enough to bypass a couple steps. Some story on that coming up here. Next question is, how can I bypass HR in my job search? And really, should I? Let me be clear here. If you would like to work in an HR function, you should not bypass HR. HR is your decision maker. For the rest of my clients, I'm a big fan of bypassing HR. The problem is we have this false idea of what HR does and what HR brings to the table. We think, well, they do all the hiring. Actually, no. The only individuals HR hires are HR individuals. The rest of it is simply facilitation and screening, blocking. What are they screening and blocking? Well, they're screening and blocking you. Have you gone after some job that you know, oh, I'm perfect for this job, perfect. And then somehow you have the HR discussion and it doesn't go forward because they somehow have determined you're somehow not perfect. And yet it's being determined by an individual that really doesn't have the proper background. They have some series of checkbox that comes off of something called the job posting, which I have a different title for, called the list of the irrelevance. That's a new word with a T and an S. Almost everything on that job posting is irrelevant to this job. Oh, it's not a day-to-day view of it. It's tangentially connected, but those things are largely irrelevant, little indicators. Do you know who really understands the job? The decision maker. You could have a 90-second conversation with the decision maker and you'll be speaking the same language. You'll get each other, and that individual will know why you're right for this job or not. You can't talk yourself into a job that you're not right for. So I'm a big believer that you simply bypass HR by doing what I teach in my LinkedIn lecture. You can check those out on my YouTube channel for the details of how to do it. But reverse search the company on LinkedIn. Imagine or see where you are going after that job and look up the food chain, down, left and right. Nice, healthy mix of 25 to 30 people to warm up your audience that you're about to meet and probably work with if they hire you. And in that group, you're going to find the 3, 4, or 5 decision makers or influencers, the people that would likely be involved in the conversation to hire a person like you. That's how you bypass. Each one of those, you give yourself permission to reach out to. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. I'm so excited by what I see going on at ABC Company. And then you have to tell them why. I saw the Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch. Oh, those things are always so good to get. You have to remember to be an actual human being. And you have to obviously go do your homework to find out what is going on with them. And after I've stroked their ego with what's going on with them, I simply have to insert why I could be valuable to that. Gosh, back when I was with XYZ, we handled a very similar launch. All you need is a carrot, just a carrot to get the interview. I handled a very similar launch at XYZ. I'd love to come in and share with you how we tackled all those issues I bet your team's experiencing. I have an opening right for the jugular. I have an opening in my calendar Tuesday at 10 a.m. Might that work for a brief meeting? There we go. There's a nice handoff that makes them feel in control. Might that work for a brief meeting? Brief meeting solves the only real problem. Don't waste my time. Oh, it's brief. It's brief. I can handle it. I think you should bypass HR. I think you should get to the decision maker. That person is looking for the right solution. If you are the right one, motivate yourself to get there. Next question. How should I apply for the job? To HR, to the decision makers? I say it in my lectures all the time, and it's not rhetoric. I really do mean it. Not a fan of really ever applying online. Now, I hope you heard that clearly. I'm not a fan. Does that mean we're never going to do it? Of course not. Sometimes we would do it. But in most cases, if this is a job that you really want, you're excited about, HR's role, their mission in life, really, you're mixed into a stack of 1,000 to 2,000 resumes, which, of course, I talk about in my resume renovation lecture. You should watch that one as well. But you're mixed into this giant stack of resumes, causing resume blindness, snow blindness. They can't see who's valuable. Let's get ourselves to the decision maker. Let's reach out, introduce ourselves to the decision maker. You heard the message already. Did you notice I never mentioned I was looking for a job, although it's absolutely crystal clear? I avoid saying things like I'm looking for a job, or I avoid mentioning a job, even if there was one. I just expect that if there is a job, they're going to go, oh, we need a person just like this. Yes, you do. That's why I'm here. So you position yourself essentially to get struck by lightning in the outreach. That is applying for the job. In my view, that's going after it. Could you also, after you reach out to the decision maker, could you click consent to HR and dance through those hoops? You could. It's up to you how you waste or invest, your job search time. Your time is the only resource you actually have. So please invest it very, very wisely. In all cases, my view is let's get ourselves to the decision maker. They're the ones that are actually in pain and they understand what you bring to the table. Next question. How do I discover the hiring timeline plus the steps involved? Now, if you were actually going to manage your timeline, manage your interview process, and have some effect on it, that means behind the scenes, or at least a good idea up in our head, we have to have an idea of what do they expect from a hiring process? How long do they expect to go? And they're probably not very clear or correct on whatever they tell you there. So that has to be adjustable based on your own wisdom, not what they actually say. And the steps involved. Well, that can be as simple as once you have the conversation going, doing some fact finding. Oh my gosh, Jack, Jim, or Jill, this is so exciting. Can I ask you, where are you at in your hiring process? Notice how broad a question that is. If you ask narrow pointed questions, you get narrow pointed answers. If you ask broad questions, they could give you much more of an answer that could be more helpful. And then you can always go back to a pointed narrow answer if they missed something that was really important to you. So hopefully they'll tell me, well, we're just getting started, or we've seen 2 or 3 people, ding, 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 ding. They've seen 2 or 3 people. Typically we have to see between 4 and 6 people before we're really ready to make a decision. Otherwise, we feel if we make a decision too early, it's a little bit of buyer's remorse. So I like this one, but did I decide too early? Should I have seen some more? So if they've seen 2 or 3 people and maybe you're the 3rd one or the 4th one, you likely know there's a couple more after you and you have a sense of what's still involved in the number of participants. From a timeline, you could say, Jack, Jim, or Jill, let me ask you, when would you really like this person on board? If you had, you wave the magic wand, get them on board. Well, I mean, we'd love them on board November 1st. On Monday? That's not really going to happen, because, of course, when you do locate the right person, you'd have to, that person typically is working, and they will need to extend at least a 2-week notice to where they're currently working, and they may need a week or two in between there if it's been a number of years before transition. So realistically, December 1st might make sense if we were at decision point right now or by next week. You begin to understand what's involved in the timeline. Their timeline they give you may be slightly off, but you can adjust it to understand and manage your own expectations. Steps involved, you might simply ask them, what's involved in your interview process? Is it a series of one-on-ones? Do you do panel interviews? Tell me a little bit about that. And they'll disclose to you. The thing to remember about steps involved is quite often, it's often different than they claim it to be. They might sketch out what they think it will be, and then suddenly it's different than that. You may even show up for a one-on-one, and suddenly there's a 3-person panel there, and you cannot allow yourself to be thrown off. You have to allow that all of these changes or all these differences might happen all the time. Next question, how do I use communications to showcase my value? Whether it's that first outreach, dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, or whether it's the conversation in electronic communication or verbal communication that might happen after that subsequently, every single message back and forth, it's not about simply answer some question they had or ask some question I have as a follow-up. It's about thinking about how you position what you say to elevate your value compared to your competitors. How do you use your communication style to illustrate how easy and it'll be to work with you, and how much attention to detail, without being a thorn in their side, how much attention to detail do you bring to the process? Do you have a proper email signature that showcases your value? All of these things can communicate that, wow, this person's very sharp. They seem to be on point. They seem to be just dropping the little tidbit in there each time that could be valuable to me. A lot of us, when we have an interview, we want to dump everything that could be of interest right away. And I understand that. But there is a value to knowing your entire career asset story that may be up on the shelf here. And you use parts of it for the interview, and other cherished pieces, you can drop extra value pieces inside of each one of these communication pieces. The goal of your communication is also to tighten the chemistry. Big believer that we must be on a first name basis for everyone. I don't care if that's the CEO of the company and I've never spoken to them before, or the person that cleans the CEO's office. Every single person by first name. You must be equal. Never speak up to anyone, and of course, never speak down to anyone. Really important in your communication style. How can I speed up or slow down my interview process? Well, this is a really good question in terms of managing your interview process. Let me get a little bit of a caffeine bump here. So I had a couple of different clients over the last few weeks in this very scenario. They were racing toward the finish line with an offer, and yet they had 2 other companies that they were also interviewing with that were getting close to offer. So this came up right away. It's like, my gosh, this one's racing toward the altar, because it's like stepping up on the altar when they extend you that offer, waiting for the I do on the other side. How can I slow that one down just a little bit, and how can I speed these other 2 up? Well, first things, we have to look at normal things in our timeline work life that could slow things down. If they reach out to you, let's use today as an example. It's just afternoon on Friday, and they emailed you right now saying, gosh, we'd love to bring you back. Monday, good for you. Tuesday, good for you. What's best for you? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I know you're excited. You're ready to answer back right now. But if that's the one you think is racing toward the altar, going to get to an offer too quickly, then what you can do is understand that a top candidate, a top individual for this role is very busy delivering value elsewhere. They're not sitting and interviewing all day they're already busy with a full schedule. So even though you're eager, the point would be not to answer back right away. The point would be to let's kick that to say maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, where you just got out of an afternoon's full of meetings. Hey, Jack, Jim, or Jill, just out of a whole afternoon full of meetings. Very excited to take the next step next week. In looking ahead, I would say at this point, Tuesday, late Tuesday, even into Wednesday would be better for the schedule. Here's 2 or 3 times. Let me know what's best for you. Now, effectively, by just pushing the rest of Friday off the table, because when I go back to them 3:30, 4 o'clock, very, very little is likely to happen. Could happen, not likely to happen. And now I've also taken their window and started at the very end of the window and also suggested maybe even the next day past the window, although staying adaptable for them. This begins to buy you ever so little bit more time in each step. The other two that I want to speed up, it's very, very important that I go back to them without disclosing whom else I'm speaking to. Think of all these 3 companies for a moment. It's a dating process. Nobody wants to feel like second fiddle, second level interest here. Everybody wants to know it's really you that I want to work for. So we're going to have to understand that part of it. Part of your job is to teach them how to select you and to get them to fall in love with your skill set. So as I go back to these other 2, I reach back out to Jack, Jim, or Jill, who was out to these other 2. Pretty similar message to both. And I simply go, I have to tell you, I am so excited. I really, really enjoyed our initial conversation. I would love to see if there's a way we can accelerate the process. I'm actually getting very close to an offer from another organization, but yours is the team that I'm really excited about joining. Is there a way that we can move our next interview to either Monday or possibly Tuesday? And by the way, of course, I could make myself available over the weekend if that was a help as well. Please let me know. I'm looking forward to our next steps. And if I don't talk to you before the weekend, have a great start to yours. Don't forget to be a real human being. Pause. Now, I would send that similar message out to both of them. First off, it's also a test. If they are really excited about you, they'll scramble. Well, we don't want to lose this person. Let's see. It's a minor accommodation to go ahead and schedule this next week. Let's not lose this person if they're the right one. And that's also a test. If one of them moves forward quickly, probably the one that is very excited about you. So this is all part of the process, and you can do it multiple times depending on how things are progressing. So I want you to think about all the ways without being disruptive that you can gently move the process forward or gently slow the process ever so slightly. But you can have a lot of effect. You have to begin to do it to actually have an effect. How can I use backchannel communications? Backchannel communications by other people in the background in my interview process. I have a client right now that has done this very, very effectively. They're interviewing right now with a multi-billion-dollar organization, big operation. I think they have about 1,600 people on board. And in this whole interview process, of course, they followed my guidance. They reached directly out to the decision maker with this compelling pitch and email that they never responded to. You have to understand the work is as a puppet master. Oh, I know you'd love a response to that email, but that's not the point. The point is that email that you send causes action or reaction behind the scenes, causes things to happen. You cause things to happen by being a puppet master. So we sent this email off to the person, very, very engaging, right to the direct decision maker. And before long, my gosh, didn't we have an outreach from their top global HR person? Why? Because the hiring manager, said, hey, this is a person I don't want to miss. And then we had a nice early discussion with the HR person, which was simply just there's a lot going on at this organization in the news, and we want to make sure you don't get scared away in your research. So it was all really about covering their behind to make sure candidates stayed very, very interested. And then ultimately, we got a direct reply to that email we had sent to the decision maker saying, hey, would you be able to chat later in the week? Yes, I would. So in the middle of all that, after we'd sent this email to the direct decision maker, we went out to our network. Now, my client's boss, who their previous boss, who had moved to California, had actually had an opportunity at a conference to meet this new boss. Gets even better, because at this communications conference, the original boss was presenting my client's work for the whole audience to see. And that's how these two became aware of each other and had conversation. So on the back end, we had the old boss, actually, who we're still doing a side project with. Very, very good to keep those ties. Reach out and make a very strong pitch for why this individual is quite the unicorn that you cannot miss. We did hear back through our old boss that they were very excited about the candidacy, even though we heard nothing back for quite a while. Very excited, very excited. You have to understand your value. You have to be patient. And behind the scenes, this person set the stage. Now, in analyzing what happened so far, I believe that we've passed at least 2 rounds of interviews that we did not have to participate in, because the credibility that was created behind the scenes, combined with a very spectacular background, that really got them out of the early filtering process. The interview, which actually just happened not too long ago this morning, quite successful directly with the decision maker, all about the real nitty gritty of what's going on in the organization and how this individual can help transform and deliver on that. So there's a lot of different ways to use back channel communications. We have another potential individual, another asset behind the scenes that we have not used yet. We may use that individual in the coming steps. No one gets hired from just 1 or 2 interviews, or not very likely, especially further up the food chain. It takes several interviews. So don't be afraid to understand that you have different assets you may use at different times. I think we'll use another back channel communication coming up. Next question is, how can I be ready when they present an offer? You know, so many years in recruiting, and I didn't really remind you of my background, but 7 or 8 years in outside recruiting before ever becoming a career coach. That's a traditional recruiter on a desk, has to go in and find the superstar at the competitor company, lure them out. It's really like a glorified dating guru to some extent. Maybe should have gone millionaire matchmaker, a little bit different outcome. But I get this question all the time as a recruiter, and of course, as a career coach. How can I be ready? Well, I can tell you how you can be ready. You don't have to wait for the offer. I think we're pretty sharp. I think you really already know right now the 3 possible numbers they could present you. Write down right now the stinkiest, lowest, most insulting offer that could ever be made to you. And I think you know what that range is for you. That would really take you back if they gave you that offer. Write that number down. Second number is, what's the most likely next offer I'm actually going to get financially? What's that number? And it has to be a number that makes sense for you, but let's keep reasonable expectations. Write that number down. And then the third number is the pie in the sky number. Not too pie in the sky, but what's the number you're dreaming about that's still somewhat realistic, or at least reasonably realistic? Okay, now you have 3 numbers right now. You don't have to wait for an offer. You can intellectually work your way through of, what's my reaction if they give me this one? What's my reaction if they give me that one? What's my reaction if they give me this other one? This is how you get ready in advance. The biggest thing to think about here, and there's a much longer discussion in one of my videos called Interview Intervention. I recommend you watch it over my YouTube channel. So as we get through this here, you have to think about how you're going to potentially negotiate. Remember that if you negotiate anytime, you can lose the offer. Someone could feel insulted in the process, or something could go awry in the communications, and suddenly that offer can just poof, disappear. So we have to be very, very careful. My recommendation is always that we never negotiate an offer unless you're willing to lose it. That's why you need to know that stinky number, that stinky, terrible number that would you take it? No, I'm not taking that. Okay. That rises to the level of being able to take the risk to negotiate the offer, because you're never taking that anyway. When it gets closer to that middle number of what you really need without really what you want, but it's what you need, then it gets much trickier for the individual to think about, should I negotiate? You should, if you're willing to lose this offer. If you need this offer no matter what, I would be extraordinarily careful, because that offer could poof disappear. So that's how you get yourself ready, and you have to work on your strategies for that negotiation. By the way, lots more in my book, available over on Amazon and my website, SelfRecruiter.com. Also in my interview intervention lecture, that'll help you a bunch. Next question. Oh, I guess we're to the very end. I went through so quickly today. If we didn't get to your question, or you have a different question, send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com, and get your questions answered here. Small little changes change everything. This is about managing your value, the perception of your value, and all the things that you bring to the table. It's part of how you're going to take control of your discussion. Take your first step and understand how to repeat, and don't let somebody else think for yourself. You're going to have to put down that smart device, get out of the back seat, get behind the wheel, or you're not likely to get to that destination in your career that you're thinking about. Well, thank you guys for joining in. Check out my other lectures, which are all over my YouTube channel and my other locations as well. And if you need help, I think you know where to find me at SelfRecruiter.com. All my packages are under the Services tab. And again, if you need to chat before you know which one is right for you, send me a quick email. We'll set up a time to talk. Thank you guys for joining in. Please do like, comment, share, tell all your friends, and all that fun stuff. Click the bell, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.